Whenever you need me to go forward, just look at me, okay? Once there was a merchant who had two children, a daughter and a son. When the merchant was on his deathbed, his wife had been taken to the graveyard before him. He said, "My children, live well with each other, in love and concord, just as I have lived with your deceased mother." Then he died. He was buried, and prayers were said for the repose of his soul, as is fitting. Shortly afterwards, the merchant's son decided to trade beyond the sea. He rigged up his 3 ships, loaded them with a variety of goods, and said to his sister, "Now, my beloved sister, I am going on a long voyage and leaving you at home all alone. Mind you, behave properly. Do not engage in evil things. Do not consort with strangers." And they exchanged portraits. The sister took her brother's portrait, and the brother took his sister's. They wept as they took leave of each other and said farewell. The merchant's son raised anchor, pushed off from shore, hoisted sail, and reached the open sea. He sailed for 1 year. He sailed for another year. And in the 3rd year he came to a certain wealthy capital, and anchored his ships in the port. As soon as he had arrived, he took a bowl full of precious stones and rolls of his best velvet, damask, and satin. And took them to the king of those parts as a gift. He came to the palace, gave his gift to the king, and petitioned for leave to trade in his capital. The precious gift was to the king's liking. And he said to the merchant's son, "Your gift is great. In all my life I have never received a finer one. In return, I grant you the first place on the market. Buy and sell, fear no one, and if anyone injures you, come straight to me. Tomorrow I myself will visit your ship." Next day, the king came to the merchant's son, began to walk on his ship, and examine his goods. And in the master's cabin he saw a portrait hanging on the wall. He asked the merchant's son, "Whose portrait is that?" "Your sister's, my sister's, your majesty." "Well, Mr. Merchant, such a beauty I have not seen in all my days. Tell me the truth. What is her character and what are her manners?" "She is quiet and chaste as a dove." "Well, if so, she will be a queen. I will take her to wife." At that time, a certain general, who was spiteful and envious, was with the king. At the thought that anyone else might find happiness, he choked, and he heard the king's words and became terribly angry. Now, he thought, wives will have to bow to a woman with merchant class. He could not restrain himself, and he said to the king, "Your Majesty, do not order me to be put to death. Order me to speak." The king said, "Speak." The merchant's daughter is not a suitable match for you. I met her long ago, and more than once I lay on the bed and played amorous games with her. She is quite a dissolute girl. How can you, foreign merchant, say that she is quiet and chaste as a dove, and that she never exchanges evil things? Your Majesty, if the general is not lying, let him get my sister's ring from her and find out what is her secret mark. Very well, said the king, and he gave the general a furlough. If you fail to get the ring and tell me the secret mark by such and such a day, your head shall fall by my sword. The general made ready and went to the town where the merchant's daughter lived. He arrived and did not know what to do. He walked back and forth in the streets, low in spirits and thoughtful. He happened to meet an old woman who begged for alms. He gave her something. She asked, "What are you thinking about?" "Why should I tell you? You cannot help me in my trouble." "Who knows? Perhaps I can help you." "Do you know where such and such a merchant's daughter lives?" "Of course I do." "If so, get me her ring and find out what is her secret mark. If you do this for me, I shall reward you with gold." The old woman hobbled to the merchant's daughter, knocked on her door, and said that she was going to the Holy Land, and asked for alms. She spoke so cunningly that the lovely maiden became quite bewitched, and did not realize that she had blurted out where her secret mark was. While all this talk was going on, the old woman slipped the girl's ring from the table and hid it in her sleeve. Then she said farewell to the merchant's daughter, and ran to the general. She gave him the ring and said, "Her secret mark is a golden hair under her left arm." The general rewarded her liberally and set out on his way back. He came to his kingdom and reported to the palace. The merchant's son was there too. "Well," asked the king, "how have you gotten the ring?" "Here it is, your majesty." "And what is the merchant's daughter's secret mark?" "A golden hair under her left arm." "Is this correct?" asked the king to the merchant's son. "It is, your majesty." "Then how dare you lie to me? For this I will order you to be put to death." "Your majesty, do not refuse me one more favor. Give me leave to write a letter to my sister. Let her come and say farewell to me." "Very well," said the king. "Write to her, and I won't wait long." He postponed the execution, and in the meantime ordered that the young man be put in chains and thrown into the dungeon. The merchant's daughter, upon receiving her brother's letter, set out immediately. As she traveled, she knitted a golden glove and wept bitterly. Her tears fell as diamonds, and she gathered those diamonds and studded the glove with them. Damn. She arrived in the capital, rented an apartment in the house with a poor window, and asked, "What is the news in your city?" "There is no news except the foreign merchant is being made to suffer because of his sister. Tomorrow he will be hanged." The next morning, the merchant's daughter arose, hired a carriage, donned a rich garment, and went to the square, where the gallows were ready. Troops were standing guard, and the great multitude of people had gathered. And now they let out her brother. She got out of the carriage, went straight to the king, and handed him the glove that she had knitted on her way, and said to the king, "Your Majesty, I beg of you, estimate what such a glove is worth." The king examined it. "Ah," he said, "it is priceless." "Well, your general was in my house and stole a glove exactly like it, the other of the pair. Please order that a search be made for it." The king summoned the general and said to him, "There is a complaint against you that you stole a precious glove." The general began to swear that he knew nothing about it. "What do you mean you don't know?" said the merchant's daughter. "You have been in my house so many times, lain with me on my bed, played amorous games with me." "But I have never seen you before. I have never been in your house, and not for anything in the world could I say at this moment who you are or whence you have come." "If so, your Majesty, why is my brother made to suffer?" "Which brother?" asked the king. "The one who is now being led to the gallows." Thus the truth became known. The king ordered the merchant's son to be released and the general to be hanged, and himself sat in the carriage with the lovely maiden, the merchant's daughter, and drove to the church. They married, made a great feast, began to live in happiness and prosperity, and are still living to this very day. The end.